So hello and welcome everybody to our webinar today, Revitalizing Underground Infrastructure with Cooperative Purchasing. Today's webinar is being brought to you courtesy of Insituform, and our presenters today include Ian and friends. They'll all be able to introduce themselves at the appropriate times. If at any time you need some technical assistance, my name is Jeff, and in the chat box toward the bottom, you can send me, Jeff, a direct message, and I'll help you with any technical things. Otherwise, keep the chat selected to everyone, and they'll be able to see the comments and questions you have. They may even be able to answer some of those questions. However, if you have some questions specifically for our presenters today, and you want to make sure that they see them, if you add them in the Q&A box, we'll make sure that we cover those at the end of our presentation today. Ian, would you like to get us started?
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everybody, for attending. We are going to take these next 30 to 45 minutes with you to go over some interesting information, maybe a topic that you've never really seen, especially in the purchasing world, procurement world, revitalizing underground infrastructure, repairing underground infrastructure with cooperative purchasing. I've got two other excellent attendees with me today. And I'll go ahead and let Valerie introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Valerie Calvente. I'm the Chief Procurement Officer with DuPage County, who led the bidding process for this opportunity. Megan?
Yeah. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Megan Nord. I am the Supplier Sales Enablement Senior Director with Omnia Partners. So my role and my team's role is really to work with both our supplier partners and member agencies to really educate on the value of cooperative purchasing, the value of Omnia Partners, and really how we can align and work together to meet everyone's needs.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks,
Yeah.
Valerie. And good afternoon. My name is Ian Lancaster. I'm the Senior Vice President for Insituform Technologies and Azuria Water Company. I've been in the underground infrastructure and construction industry most of my life, through and outside of college, and been actively participating in that for 20 plus years. Happy to go through this with you today and talk a little bit about infrastructure renovation. So today's goals, really what we'd want to try to do is just lay some groundwork for the need for infrastructure renovation. I'm sure, most everyone currently deals with that in their day-to-day jobs. But we're going to go over this just a little bit more detail specific to underground water and wastewater infrastructure, pipelines, structures, things like that, that a lot of times we don't see, but is there and is super important for our day-to-day lives. We're going to talk about cooperative purchasing. Megan's going to lead us in that, what that is, how it can benefit all of us. Valerie is going to take over specific to the process that we're going to go through today for the RFP that DuPage County issued last year. And then I'm going to step in and talk about that RFP in more detail, the offerings, the benefits. We're going to go through an interesting value proposition and a case study from a local agency that took advantage of this, and then get into some Q&A and a little bit more about Trenchless technology as a whole. So underground infrastructure, we talk about that and we talk about it today. We're really talking about underground pipelines, water and wastewater pipelines, those types of pipelines that are so necessary for our everyday needs, not just as people that deal in that industry, but also just as homeowners, as business owners, as people that live in, whether it's a small town like I live in or a big city that you're in. These are things that help us live our day-to-day lives the best way possible. And the issues that we experience with them and continue to experience with breaking pipelines, with deteriorated pipelines, it definitely not only impacts our health, our safety too, but the local agency's economy, the county's economy, and business owners as well. Booz Allen, they come out with numbers every year on the worldwide infrastructure need. Right now, just in the US alone, there's a $20 trillion need. That's just overwhelming, right? And there's so many needs as there are. But this is a really important one. Most of our underground infrastructure, unless you're in a newer municipal agency, most of that is 50+ years old, that is feeding us water, that is taking water away from our homes. And 50 years is the lifespan that those pipelines were created to last. And every day that goes by, they continue to deteriorate more and more. And it's because of this that the federal government issued the Clean Water Act 50+ years ago and really established that to help agencies get money, loans, low interest loans, different types of grants to be able to improve underground infrastructure. And the reason for that is really because it's a great return on investment once you upgrade infrastructure, once you rehabilitate, renovate, or replace that infrastructure. It's generally a 7-to-1 ROI for that, which is amazing. And something that Insituform, our company, has always specialized for 50+ years in is renovating that underground infrastructure in place. And that reduces time and cost. And it's something, and one of the main reasons that DuPage County went through that with this RFP that Valerie will talk about. On the right, you'll see a graph of the legacy of replacement costs versus trenchless technology costs. Again, that trenchless technology being a way to rehabilitate, to renovate underground pipelines without digging and replacing, without causing so much social disruption. And I think this is a great graph that kind of shows not only, the progress, that trenchless technology has made to save money and time here, but also, how continued excavation, legacy excavation and replacement continues to go up in price. So we'll talk about this through this presentation, more and more of the time savings, the monetary savings, the cooperative purchasing savings, to try to, help everybody not only understand this process, but maybe think a little bit more about it in the future. So I'm going to pass it over to Megan right now to really talk specifically about cooperative purchasing in general.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. So again, good afternoon, everyone. Really thrilled to be here to talk to you about this topic. You'll see here on this slide, some of the many benefits of utilizing a cooperative contract. I want to back up a little bit before I kind of go down this list and just talk to what is cooperative purchasing, right? So cooperative purchasing really leans on lead agencies like Valerie is representing today with the County of DuPage, to really lead that solicitation process in a competitive way and award contracts publicly. Within those contracts, like Insituform's, Omnia Partners is named as the cooperative. So that makes it now a contract that is able to be nationally leveraged and nationally utilized. So there's a lot of benefits to utilizing cooperative contracts. It is a contract that saves agencies often a lot of time, money, and resources. We have seen since its inception the utilization of cooperative contracts really on the rise by about 3 to 5% year over year. And a lot of that is because of the time-saving element that it provides. It allows agencies to that solicitation process has already been done by the lead agency. We know that can be a long process for agencies and for procurement, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. So there's benefit to you and to your teams to be able to leverage those contracts that have already been competitively solicited and publicly awarded. And you can find documents to all of those contract documents on the supplier's microsite of omniapartners.com. It's open to the public. You can do your own due diligence to ensure that the process Insituform would have went through with County of DuPage would meet or exceed your procurement expectations. Of course, there's opportunity for greater efficiency and economies of scale. One value add we often see is by utilizing cooperative contracts, this allows your team to maybe shift from a more transactional approach to procuring to a more strategic approach, because it frees up your time, your resources, and it really allows you to scale what you're bringing into your organization. Of course, because this is a nationally leveraged contract or a nationally procured contract, the pricing often has cost savings added to it. So you get those discounts for utilizing these contracts. Another benefit is the fact that there is no cost for you to become a member. This is a completely free sign up for you, and there is no minimum purchase amount. So if you choose to become a member of Omnia Partners or often even other cooperatives, you do not have to purchase through a certain amount of contracts to continue to be a member. That is something that is completely free of charge for you. And then, the first class purchasing procedures, ensuring the most competitive contracts. So the lead agencies we work with, like the County of DuPage, we ensure our agencies that are known for their world-renowned procurement processes and best-in-class procedures. So they have a certain credibility that comes with them, so you can feel confident and you can feel comfortable that the process that Insituform would have went through with County of DuPage again would meet or exceed your procurement standards. And like I mentioned earlier, to be safe and have that extra checkbox there, you can always find every single document that Insituform went through the solicitation process with County of DuPage on the Omnia Partners website under Insituform's microsite.
Great. Thanks, Megan. I'll hand it over to Valerie to talk specifically about the DuPage County process.
Well, thanks so much. I think Megan set it up so perfectly. So before I really dive into this process, I would really want to explain DuPage County is the lead agency and owns the contract. We went through the process fair, transparent. We made sure that we had a lot of things. So I understand that people may be hesitant, but in government, we really do embed this in our DNA. So I really want to start that off because I think we did our great due diligence in setting up this project. So we definitely included it in our projects for our budgeting in 2022. So we know we wanted to go this route. It has been a pleasure to really pair up with Omnia to really make sure that we had this opportunity to share with you. So I assigned a buyer, Nick Edmond, who was here with the county, as the lead person for that bid. He really went back, he did his due diligence, he did a lot of research. One of the things is that we're no subject matter experts, but we do our best, of course, in procurement, but we really rely on our departments to really help us out in the process. So I'm going to go through the whole process for you. Our Public Works Department really thought that this was a great idea. They really invested the time and resources in it. So, of course, Nick took off his gloves, really worked hard on the scope. But one of the things that we came back from our Public Works Director was it didn't have everything in there. So we really wanted to take the time to really peel back the onion. So we got it together. We helped Omnia apprise of every step that we went through. We had everything that we thought we wanted in there, but then of course, Public Works goes, it's not about us. It's really about everyone else we will be sharing this bid with, because buying off of cooperative is very important to all of us, but we want to make sure the value is also there. So one of the things that we did was we really invested in an engineer to really look over the plans, because we realized part of the cost and part of the time savings is really having an engineer look over your plans to make sure whatever you scope is correct. So we took that time to really invest in that process. That was something the county did. We would have done it regardless of any bid that we put out. So that really takes a small pressure off of our government agencies that may use this bid as well. We invited contractors to participate in a competitive process. One of the things we did, and especially working with Omnia, we made sure that we had a notice to bidders. The bidders not only went locally to the Daily Herald, We also advertised, throughout the country on USA Today. We also sent out over 200 personal invitations to contractors. I mean, we really did our sourcing. We really went back and say, who plays in this industry? Who can possibly help us with this opportunity? And we really sent out those. We know that it was very successful, mainly because we had people contacting us saying, hey, can I get a copy of the bid documents? So we know that we did our due diligence there. During this time, we definitely had weekly meetings with Omnia just to make sure that we understand the process that we had and then also the design of the bid. This is our ownership of these bids. We released it in October of 2023. We advertised, like I said, throughout locally all the country, but we also held, since we're located in Chicago, not everyone is so fortunate to live here in Chicago, we definitely put it back out to do a virtual non-mandatory pre-conference. That is key. We want to make sure we have the right players there. We want to make sure that they ask the right question. One of the values of a bid is that you really want to put it out. And that's what we took the time of saying, what's important? Did we miss anything? What do we have? So we addressed any high level, no technical questions during the call. We made sure we had our buyer on the call. We made sure we had the engineer that worked with us on the scope, and then also our director of public works. So we want to make sure no one had any type of insight. So we kept this very tight. That means that nobody, if you asked a question, someone else got the answer as well. Whether we thought that they intended to bid or not, we don't know what each person wanted to do. But our goal is to eliminate any confusion during this whole process of the bid. Interested suppliers were allowed to respond to us. I think we did it right after the holiday, but we made sure that it was a good holiday, of course, for them. And definitely we opened the bids in the public. So we did everything that we could possibly do for transparency. Once we got that done, we go into what is called an evaluation stage. Before we started on opening the bids, we already identified our evaluation team. Our buyer made sure he had a call with each one of them, make sure there was no conflicts at all. There were none. So then we proceed to give them the paperwork they'll need to score. Scoring is done individually, not as a group. They cannot talk to each other. They even signed a little waiver saying, no, I will not talk to anyone else at the county about this bid. So we really made sure we had our engineers at the county really assess each bid. Once they finished doing that from Division of Transportation, Stormwater, Public Works, we want to make sure that they had what they need. We evaluated the bids based on the firm qualifications, the key qualifications of who they were assigning to the project, also the project understanding. That is what they scored against. Procurement does all the scoring for pricing. We don't do it until after the fact, and that's mainly because we don't want everyone to say, oh, they're too expensive, they're not. The whole question about evaluation is keeping it honest, fair, transparent. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that toward the end. As we sought the approval for our county board and then our committees, we shared with AMIA who we would like to bring forward. They had no voice in the process, but what they did have a voice in is a stake in it. So we wanted to make sure that they didn't have influence on us and we didn't have influence on them as we continue to do that. And we ensured that everything was in place. We followed up with them individually. I know Omnia took the lead on some of the items to make sure we had some of the documents that was required within the whole contract. Time is a great asset. That's the one thing that I can definitely tell you. We dedicated a lot of time and resources in the beginning so you as an agency wouldn't have to recreate the rule on some of that time and then that you needed to advance that project. Of course, there's some things that I gave you that we really accelerated with. This took a long process for us. We wanted to make sure we did it right. We wanted to make sure that we followed the state of Illinois. We wanted to make sure we followed our own ordinance. Because this is part of our Division of Transportation, we wanted to make sure that they were on board because they get a lot of things from the federal government and then also our state government. So that was the whole point of why we really wanted to take our time with this procurement. The goal of any procurement is success. I mean, success is measured in different ways. When we took this one on, we took it about the value. Did we get it right? Were there any gaps? Do we articulate what was needed? Um, and then especially the transparency. That is what we want to make sure. And that's going to come into play because we wanted to make sure, did we communicate with each person? No one had an advantage. No one saw the bid beforehand. And then also the what ifs. I'm probably the biggest person that really think about what ifs. Can we defend this procurement if we were forward? Of course I can. I mean, we really went back and thought about what about this? What about that? Um, when you decide and your entity decide to move forward, here's the value. There's no need to bid out individual specs. It is covered in here. We made sure we had an engineer look at our drawings. And definitely, you may want to consult with the engineer, but at the same token, we know that that can add to your time as well. So if you look at the time, if you had a bid package that was ready to go on the street, you can save about 6 weeks. But the goal is that when you do a project of this magnitude, it's a little bit more detailed. It can take you over 3 to 6 months to get this project through, from drafting all the way through to approval to definitely securing a contract. We took that out. We took that cooperative contract, we took our master agreement to really make it solid for not only for the county, but also for your entity. We do have a state's attorney, assistant state's attorney on staff, just dedicated to procurement for us. So that is really helpful. We conversated with him way in the beginning, before, during, and after this process until that contract was signed. Our goal was to make sure of that. And then also for FOIA, I don't know how much time you spend on FOIA. We do have a FOIA agency here at the county, but if there's a question regarding our contract, it comes back to us. You don't have to worry about that small piece. That is part of our process to make sure that it's tight, that we follow all applicable laws, especially the county ordinance. We want to make sure we get it right. And we have nothing to hide because, of course, everything is located on Omnia Partners. Everything that we released, from the bid documents to the solicitation to the award, that is located on Omnia Partners. It's a long process, even though it seems short, that I made it short, but it really is comprehensive of what we did here at DuPage County.
Thanks so much, Valerie. It still amazes me, even though I've heard it before, how much you guys went through to do that. And I appreciate you going through that in detail. So now we're going to hop in specifically to the contract and what it consists of, what it's good through. It's hard as a person that's been in underground construction and infrastructure for my whole career. It's hard to really get people to understand just how special this type of agreement is. This has never been done by an agency before, not to this extent, in this cooperative fashion. There obviously trenchless renovation of infrastructure has been going on for 50 plus years. One of the products that's listed on the contract, cured in place pipe, CIPP, is probably the most well-respected way to renovate underground water and wastewater pipelines, and is utilized all over the world for billions and billions of dollars. But DuPage did something that no one else has done, and it's very needed in this time for a variety of reasons. And we'll get into that. But this contract contains over 700 items, almost 800 items that deal with pretty much any water and wastewater infrastructure that your agency has in its system. It is specifically devoted to the trenchless renovation in order to reduce costs, to reduce social impact, and it improves timing. It definitely reduces the amount of time compared to legacy dig and replace. And it utilizes a variety of different techniques too, which is interesting, right? Generally, this is something that an agency, small or large, would have to go to an outside consultant to design or help them understand what should be done. And DuPage County, as Valerie said so eloquently, went through years of of identifying the needs, having things designed, specifications done in order to put out a very, very robust agreement that could be used not just by DuPage, but as she said, anyone and everyone across the nation. The pricing that's listed on the agreement is not to exceed pricing. As a person who's done cooperative purchasing for 20 plus years too, in the underground infrastructure, generally what you see with this not to exceed pricing is because it's priced on a project by project basis. Generally, there is a fairly substantial reduction in price compared to those not to exceed prices that are on the contract, because those not to exceed prices are generally kind of the worst case assumption for that type of work. The project also is valid through 2029. The agreement, it's a 3-year agreement with 2 1-year extensions. So there's plenty of time there. This is really on the screen now, the value proposition for this type of work. You know, it's different. And when you talk cooperative purchasing, you know, all kinds of things can come to your mind, right? But in this case, this is a service-related offering. And in construction and underground construction, specifically the trenchless renovation of underground pipelines and structures, generally the traditional design bid build on the top is how things are done. And you may be familiar in your end as, you know, a representative for the procurement and purchasing team, kind of how this flows, which is generally there's a plan that's designed, specifications that are put together based on what is needed, and then a review and approval process that's gone through, then the formal award, and then construction. And what you see on the screen is a $1 million trenchless project. And I really feel like this graphic speaks volumes to the benefit that can be derived from cooperative agreements specifically related to trenchless renovation of underground pipes and structures. Generally, each time every agency goes through this plan and specification design and procurement review and approval. And even if there is another project that was similar to, let's say, the project that you did in 2023, you're still going to go through that time. You may hire an outside entity, a consulting engineer. You may have an internal team that does this, but this is a constant in every one of these projects. But in underground infrastructure and the renovation of underground infrastructure, these kind of steps that DuPage has already gone through, they're not needed to be done each time. And I think that that's just a super powerful thing that's able to be taken advantage of here in the cooperative, is you're able to take advantage of what DuPage did and what the years, as Valerie said, of what DuPage has done, everything that they did from the design and specifications and procurement review and approval. You're able to take advantage of that yourselves, and you end up cutting down 50% of the time on an infrastructure contract. And if you're familiar with the deteriorating infrastructure, like we talked about before, that time, that reduction in time is a monetary savings guaranteed, because whatever need you have to renovate an old water pipeline or old wastewater pipeline, if you're able to save 50% of the time in your normal traditional design bid build process, you're going to eliminate a certain amount of repairs or breaks or road collapsing or sinkholes or property damage that happens in that time frame. So in a time frame like this, for $1 million project of this type, generally it takes almost 13 months from the design aspect to the final construction aspect. In the Omnia Partners Cooperative, the DuPage County, Illinois Cooperative, you're able to cut that down to basically 5 or 6 months, because you're cutting off the first half and taking advantage of what DuPage had already gone through and the time and resources they spent. And that time, those resources, whether they're internal or external resources, that's money. And that's a guaranteed savings of at least 10% for each project. So $100,000 in savings for every $1 million you spend on infrastructure. That's substantial. It doesn't matter where you are, whether it's a small town or a big city, that kind of money is needed to be reinvested, whether that's back into infrastructure, whether that's into other public works processes, or whether that's into some parks and recreation or any other need. There is not an unlimited amount of money here. We know that. And that's really the value proposition here is 50% time savings and 10% monetary savings, really purely just because of what DuPage has gone through and what you can take advantage of in this. So here's a really good case. There's so many great case studies here, but this is a really, in my mind, a great case study to talk about that value proposition in real life. This was an agency in New Mexico, somebody who had utilized the traditional design bid build approach, and who at some point said, why are we doing the same thing over and over again? There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a quicker way. In this case, man, we have some really problematic piping. And if we can speed up the time to perform this work, that's great. That's really what they were looking at first. And they wanted to speed up time. They found through Cooperative they could do that. But what really didn't get realized until the end of this is just the savings alone that they were able to take advantage of because of the improved time. And that was not going through a long consulting engagement to try to design something, since the process and the products and the specifications had already been designed. And then saving on their internal resources where, yeah, those resources are still there and still employed by the agency, right? But they were able to rededicate those personnel, those engineers and procurement team to more pressing matters. And we all have plenty on our plate. I know that I wouldn't complain if anybody took something off of my plate today, because I still have more to do in other areas. And they were able to reallocate those resources and focus on something else, which saved time and money there. And then more importantly, they were able to save 6 months on this process that took 12 months to complete. So a total value of the project was almost 16 million, which is pretty substantial, right? These cooperative procurements can be anywhere from, tens of thousands of dollars to $16 million plus. But they too were able to see that good savings there and reallocate resources, reallocate external costs, save at least 5% on something, and most importantly, go back to what they were originally looking at in the beginning, which was just purely trying to save time and get this done so that they didn't have a major collapse and cost themselves millions of dollars in repairs again. And when they did this, they finally saw, man, this is something we should really consider, because an underground infrastructure, because it's an existing asset, there is no need to go through these lengthy design and procurement types of procedures in many cases. So how does this work? It's kind of the call to action, right? You may be thinking in your mind, that's interesting. I can see maybe some value. I don't really deal with public works too much or understand this process too well. Like, how do we get started with this? What if we feel like we had a need? And I really love this slide because it's very simple. And with this agreement and with cooperative procurement in general, there's really nothing that you have to do except to reach out to the contract holder and say, hey, we may want to do something. Can we work with you to look at this and see how much it'll cost? I hate to say, one of those cheesy, hey, free estimate for you kind of things, but we have many entities that we work with daily all across the nation that will ask us to come out and do a proposal, and we'll gather the data and do the survey and engage any local subcontractors or minority companies that need to be involved, select the appropriate line items on the cooperative agreement from DuPage County, and then price out those items at or below the not to exceed pricing that was established and deliver the proposal. So we have customers that have been doing this for decades in cooperatives that do this so that they can budget for next year. And it's a great way to think about, man, I'm not sure. I know we're having a problem. I know we need to do something with it. We've talked about maybe replacing it, maybe considering, other types of services. Look at the Trenchless replacement, look at the infrastructure contract with DuPage, and try to help yourselves get a better idea of what that cost will be, what that time frame will be. And if it benefits you, then you know the approach, or you have a great idea of the approach that has to be taken. And if it's not there, then you've received something and you've actually kind of justified the need for, hey, let's go in this different direction that we were thinking about. We've seen this, and in this specific project case, it may not save us as much time or as much money as we were hoping. So let's go a different direction. It's a great way to do things. It's a great way to get a different perspective, to really test out whether or not a cooperative agreement like this will be of value in this specific case. In most cases it is, but in some cases it may not be. And again, that helps you to provide justification for other things, to do other things, or gives you an idea of, how to look elsewhere to see what you need to do to renovate that underground infrastructure in a timely manner, and a manner that is in the best interest of the ratepayers there. So I wanted to thank you on behalf of Megan and Valerie and I for taking the time to do this. And now we're gonna just kind of take a look at some of the questions and see if we can help answer some things prior to closing the session.
And so there were a few questions that came through, Ian. I don't know if you saw them, or I can just read them out and we can pass them around to get answered if you'd like.
Yeah, Scott, if you have them at your fingertips, that would be great.
I sure do. The first one I saw came through, just a basic housekeeping question. Will the presentation slides be available after the course? And
I'll jump in and say, yes, those slides should have been sent out earlier today from Justin During with NIGP. If not, they'll be sent along with the recording later today of this webinar. We have a yes, they were in the chat, they were.
And if by chance someone missed it, is there a way that they should follow through to get a copy of those?
They'll be attached with the recording that's sent later today too.
Excellent. The next question was, has the solicitation been done in accordance with federal regulations to allow for use of federal dollars? I know the answer to that, but I think probably best heading over to Valerie for that question.
Yes, mainly because we do have a division of transportation that takes in federal and state funds. So we do have to follow those guidelines when we definitely issue a solicitation for them to utilize.
Yeah, and I'll also step in too, Valerie. One of the things that we did on the contract too, because some of our agencies that we have very good relationships, long-term relationships with, also wanted to know if it was able to be used with state revolving funds, with FEMA too. I live in Florida. We have a lot of FEMA, unfortunately, because of hurricanes. And we've got a pretty extensive checklist of all of those things that are needed to meet those auditing requirements. And a short answer, yes, but we have a pretty extensive list. I think that was Kenton Davis that asked that. We're happy to send that along to anybody that needs it too, specific to this agreement, so that you can see every checkbox that is needed for SRF, WIFIA, all those clean water funds.
And I'll add in the chat, everybody will see I did add a link directly to the due diligence of the of this contract that shows the original RFP all the way through the response and the award and everything you guys may need. But if you need further documentation, that you have questions, you can reach out to Ian, anyone on his team, or your local Omnia Partners regional manager can help you out as well. And you can find that under the contact us information on the Omnia Partners website. The next question that I see is, what was the agency cost of conducting this RFP and contract management activities? So I guess it's a lot of sweat equity there for you, Valerie, and your team, but I'll let you try to answer that one.
There was some sweat equity in there, but one of the things that we did that we didn't have to do was really seek a consultant engineer. For all of our projects we do, we want to make sure we get it right. So that was a cost upfront to us. It wasn't required of us, but that's something we do as a value add for all of our projects. And then it made it, I think, I want to say, it really made a difference because we were able to share with other agencies. In the past, we've definitely had agencies come to us that's in our region to say, hey, you have done this in the past. Can you definitely assist us? Because we do have the tools and we do assist them. So we know how valuable that is for just putting out that upfront cost. So we did put out an upfront cost. I think it's not a secret. We did quite a substantial amount in the thousands. Over the tens of thousands. But we did that because we know that we are not just looking at our stormwater department or our public works or our DOT. We wanted to make sure that we made it all inclusive, but we want to get it right. Because if we're shortening our time because we were going forward, we want to make sure that we shorten their time. In regards to the management, I mean, my team is pretty steady. We're a team of 5. So each one of them have taken a piece of that, and that's part of their normal day-to-day to really manage all of these projects.
Thank you, Valerie. All right, Ian, this one's a little bit of a longer question here for you.
I actually see this one. Is this the one you're talking about?
Yeah,
The front end savings for engineering?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read it out just so
Yeah.
everybody hears the question, and then I'll let you answer this one. It says, good afternoon. Maybe I am not clear on the front end time savings of engineering and design that you described. What was the 700,000 savings for consulting engineering in the case study? Let's say we are relocating a sewer main from the rear of properties to the street right of way. On the engineering side, how do you handle the specifics of reestablishing the sewer service for all of the customers without specific engineering evaluation design?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I'm glad this was posted. So in our case and the work that we do, though sometimes we have to access pipelines, dig them up to be able to provide access. What our services generally do, and the services that are on this contract, what it's meant to do is to renovate that underground sewer main in place. So for instance, if you didn't want to relocate that sewer main, then that would be something that falls under this agreement to be able to renovate it in place. If you're relocating the sewer main from the rear of the property to the front and having to install a new sewer main in that case, that would not fall under this trenchless type of contract. And that is definitely one that would need to be designed by an engineer. So you wouldn't be able to recognize the savings. So really the savings is due to the fact of being able to renovate that underground asset that you have in place already. There's no need to design plans for it. It's already on your engineering as-built that you have at the agency. And that's what you're taking advantage of. In that case, when you're renovating the pipeline in place instead of relocating it, you're able to take advantage of the trenchless technology time and cost savings, but also take advantage of the cooperative agreement time and cost savings, eliminating that design, eliminating that procurement time, that specification design, and being able to take advantage of the DuPage contract. Hopefully that's clear. As opposed to just the differences in renovating the underground infrastructure in place, as opposed to relocating and replacing it with a brand new pipe. Renovating it in place is still putting a new pipe in it. It's just putting a new pipe inside an old pipe. Relocating it is just putting that new pipe in a new area. And sometimes that happens because, in many cases, we see our clients that are not comfortable with, rear easement wastewater mains or water mains and want to move them. And in some cases for the long term, that may not be a bad move. So hopefully that answered your question.
Excellent. Thank you, Ian. And the next question is probably best answered by us here at Omnia. It is, what does DuPage County gain by allowing their procurement to be used nationwide? And Valerie, you're welcome to chime in on this also, but I'll jump in by saying, obviously, this starts as a contract for DuPage County that is available for all agencies nationwide. So number one, it is their contract. They get access to that contract. There are with, which is a unique thing at Omnia, but I'm sure there's other cooperative contracts out there like this as well, where there are administrative fees that come through the cooperative, and there is a share of those fees back to all of our lead agencies on the various contracts that they lead for us.
You know, I'm just going to jump in. One of the things that I've been in the procurement world for a lot of times, a lot of years. We won't say how long, but one of the things that I've come from is really a service industry. And having that service industry of helping other agencies succeed, that is our reward right there. I know it sounds cheesy, but it is something I tell my team because we have a lot of agencies within our 6 county borders. If we could help them lessen the impact, and I can help someone else, nationwide, lessen their impact and time and free up their time to do other things and other projects, because we know we're all forced with time. It's really about helping you as an agency. I think that's the piece that really attracted us with Omnia.
Thank you, Valerie. And I believe, Ian, there's a couple comments here, but I don't see any additional questions that are listed. I don't know, Jeff, if you see anything different out there that I may have missed.
Nothing currently in the Q&A box. It sounds like we have gone through the chat and covered everything. But if we haven't, let us know in the chat. Send us a message that says, wait, and then you can retype your question if we missed it. No waits, just thank yous are coming in.
There was one final question that just came through that says, will the checklist be included with the recording?
The answer on NIGP side is anything that you send to us as soon as this webinar ends, we can include in that email that is sent out. So if there's anything, a checklist or anything anyone has, send it my way.
And then we did just get another question through the Q&A. It says, what if you need the plan stamped by a registered engineer in your particular state?
Yeah, great question. We definitely get those stamped. We have, as I mentioned before, a variety of agencies we worked with for a long time that utilize these for a variety of different state and federal funds and need something stamped. If we don't have an internal engineer, which we have the majority of the states covered, but if we don't have our internal engineer that can stamp, we always go and get an outside stamp so that everything can be properly documented.
No additional questions coming in, just some more thank yous. Ian, friends, any final words before I close our webinar?
No, just thank you very much for the time, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity for us to talk to you about this very different subject generally.
Yes, and thank you. Everyone, this session is ending. If you have an opportunity to take the survey, it just allows us to bring you more of the stuff that you are looking for. That survey is about to pop up right now. Make it a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.